Hoodoo voodoo. Do you do? Hoodoo voodoo do? Hoodoo. Sounds familiar.
Does anyone remember Dead Island, the zombie game released back in 2011? Because I do. Do I remember? And am I excited for the next one coming out? But that's not what I want to talk about. I want to talk about today Dead Island and its, let's call it a counterpart, Dying Light. Now I call it a counterpart because that game is very similar, and I know that people might agree with me on that statement, and they might not know why that game is so similar to Dead Island. And I just want to talk about that today and compare the two games. Even though they're very old games, they're two of my favorite games. They're two good zombie games, and recently Dying Light 2 was released, and it was a good game. I enjoyed it. I wouldn't say it was as good as the first one in my opinion, but it all comes down to certain aspects of both games that I enjoyed in one and didn't enjoy in the other, and vice versa, but that's a topic for another video. Along with that, we have Dead Island 2 coming out in less than a month now, and I am overly excited for that. You might have seen my previous video about that. Now, to the people playing those two games, not the newer ones, but the original Dead Island and the original Dying Light, might see a lot of comparisons between those two games. They're very similar, and there's reasons to that. The main reason is Dying Light was supposed to be a sequel to Dead Island originally. So let's just start with Dead Island, the first game in this uncanon series, let's call it. Released back in 2011, it was actually made by Deep Silver and Techland. It was published by Deep Silver and developed by Techland, I think. And those two game companies might actually sound familiar. Techland made Dying Light, and Deep Silver doesn't make a lot of stuff anymore. I'm pretty sure they had a part in the Metro games, which I love the Metro games, and actually talking about that now, I can make some videos on the Metro games. Hopefully they make a new one soon. Holy crap. They might have ended Artyom's story, but I am hyped to see if they do anything else with that series. That IP is so good. I love the Metro franchise. But not the topic of this video. Back to the topic at hand. Techland and Deep Silver made Dead Island. And to my knowledge, they planned on creating Dying Light as a sequel. They had it in mind during Dead Island's production. I mean, you can find certain little hints to Dying Light in Dead Island, and Dying Light wasn't even out yet. It wasn't even announced. It was 3 years away. One thing, for example, if you know the city from Dying Light, it is Haran. And Haran is a real city, but it is pretty much deserty city in Turkey. So unless they're talking about that, it is a totally fictional city, and they've said it's a fictional city. So I'm just saying, if you want to try to connect it to a real city, it would be pretty hard. So knowing that, if you play Dead Island, you can actually come across a lot of buses labeled European Haran tours. So unless, again, those tours are talking about the city in Turkey, you would assume that those buses are going to Haran, the city from Dying Light. So with that in mind, you would think, maybe not with that little bit of info, but you would think the games would be connected. But in fact, the developers have come out and said, of both games have came out and said that they are not in the same Zombieverse, let's call it. And I would believe that's because the two companies had a falling out. And with that falling out, it was just around the same time as Dead Island 2. So you could believe Techland had a part in Dead Island 2. Big falling out, they lost some of the rights. And then Techland decided, we have our own stuff. We're going to go make our own zombie game, and you guys can deal with Dead Island 2, leaving Deep Silver to develop it themselves. Now, I think that was almost 10 years ago. So I think throughout the years, they've kind of came together, because in Dying Light 2, actually, you come across a record that says, "Who do you voodoo?" That's the name of the record, and your character says, "This sounds familiar." I'm pretty sure everyone knows this, because this is one of the biggest little Easter eggs. But "Who Do You Voodoo" is actually Sam B's one-hit wonder track back in Dead Island. So you'd assume same universe. But that could just be a little hint that there has to be some of the same developers working on the Dead Island games and Dying Light games, considering Techland did help make the Dead Island games. Now, there are some counterpoints that I have seen with story and stuff, seeing as the viruses are slightly different, but when you look at it, they are different viruses, but they could be derived from the same thing. I mean, GRE was doing tests, and at the same time, the scientists in Dead Island were doing tests on the natives. So maybe this was a virus that the government had that they were doing tests on in these certain countries. Along with that, you can consider that the zombies are very similar, other than the virals, which there are virals in Dead Island and Dying Light. The only difference is in Dying Light, they climb. But there was the Parkour Runners Festival in Haran, which would explain why the virals climb, because they are not as zombified zombies. They still have cognitive abilities and a little bit of the memories. I mean, when you attack some of the zombies in Dying Light, they cower to you like humans and say, no, no, please. So you would assume they still have a little bit of that in them. The other thing, though, is the volatiles. The volatiles are not in Dead Island. There are special zombies in both games, but the big thing are the volatiles. On the other hand, again, different virus. The Haran virus could be a mutated version of whatever virus it was in Benoi. So I just want to see if maybe in Dead Island 2, they try to connect anything else to the Dying Light series because of what Dying Light did with the Who Do You Voodoo. I just want to make a quick interruption to the video. I didn't mention who's now developing Dead Island 2 because it's not going to be Techland after the falling out. So the developers of Dead Island 2 are actually going to be Dambuster. So back in 2014, after Techland and Deep Silver had that falling out, a year after that actually, a game development company called Sumo Digital, you might have heard of them, I personally have not, started developing Dead Island 2. But back in 2019, the development actually switched over to a new company, Dambuster Studios, which is actually a company based out of Britain, owned by Deep Silver. So Deep Silver still has quite a big part in this game. Obviously, they had a part in the original. They were the publishers. They're going to be publishing this game, but now a part of them are actually developing it. So it's more of a Deep Silver project at this point. Sorry for that interruption. I just noticed I didn't add that in and thought it might be useful information. I've also been searching through Dying Light 2 to see if I can find any other Easter eggs. I mean, there's probably some that I've missed, but they're probably just Easter eggs. I mean, when you look at both games, the original Dying Light 1 and the original Dead Island, they are so similar. The zombies look the same. The guns in both games are like exactly the same. A lot of the weapons are same. The crafting is very similar. The inventory system is very similar. It's not, I don't want to say it's a copy-paste game because Techland did very well at creating their own zombie game. But at the same time, they gave us a game that felt like it was a part of that series because it was supposed to be a part of that series. And for the developers to just shut down that it's not, I feel like they're either hiding something because of that falling out, or they're back on better terms and are going to try to put something from that in the games in the future. I don't know. You guys should let me know what you think in the comments. Anyways, yeah, that's about it. If you liked this video, anything I talked about, please go down, hit that like, hit that subscribe. Again, if you need to tell me anything, comment it. If you want to disagree, comment it. I don't care. I allow all comments. Yeah. Don't forget to check out BillyTheWhip.com or just BillyTheWhip anywhere. And my fans just turned on, so this is a good time to stop. Yeah. Have a great day.
There was a misinput, calm down!